A woman has been jailed for stabbing to death a convicted paedophile.
Paedophiles tear lives apart. It's what they do.
Her children had been sexually abused.
Were you glad he was dead?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
She stabbed Michael Plested repeatedly. He bled to death. 20 minutes later, she re-emerged. You can see the knife.
I bring life into the world. It never occurred to me that I would be guilty of taking life out of the world.
Did a man need to die? Did children need to be hurt for the truth to come out?
I think I had a knife in my left hand, and I remember him trying to grab it. I had taken the law into my own hands. I had done that.
In 2014, Sarah Sands, a single mum, and her young sons moved into their first proper home, a maisonette on this estate. Her eldest son, Bradley, wasn't much older than his twin brothers, Alfie and Reese, so from the start they were always close. The family had been on a council waiting list for years, and Sarah hoped their new home would finally give the boys a sense of security as they moved into secondary education.
It was special to us. It was mine and my boys. It was our fresh start. You know, we'd poured a lot of love into that little place. It was ours. We was happy. You know, the kids were settling great at school. We could have been happy there. We could have been happy there. Took everything from me.
Sarah Sands became friendly with a pensioner in a neighbouring block. Michael Plested was 77 and lived on his own.
I genuinely thought he was just a lovely old man. I would watch him on the estate, pleased to see everyone, help everyone. Everybody, you know, said hi to him. He was easygoing, always had something nice to say. Yeah, he was just a nice man, absolutely no red flags whatsoever. I cooked for him, looked after him, always kept him company when I had the time. So many regrets. Wish I didn't move here. Wish I never said hello. I suppose that in one way it's like saying you wish you weren't kind, and you wish you'd been mean, and you'd wish you'd been ignorant, and you wish you'd been, you know. A few of the children had Saturday jobs with him, just helping him out at the back of the shop, working in the corner shop. He'd do the papers in the morning, that kind of thing. So they had Saturday jobs with him, and he asked if it would be all right if Brad could help out, and Brad was so excited. Bless him, he was so excited.
He then invited them back to his flat where, you know, the assaults took place, and that was all part of his sort of grooming, but she was unaware, and, you know, she was just looking at him as an old man who was lonely in the community.
He definitely caught everyone off guard, definitely.
Do you think now he was targeting Brad?
Yep. Yep.
She'd given food to the man that had sexually assaulted her children. She'd kind of welcomed him into her family. He was, in all intents and purposes, grooming her children. He allowed the children, even at a young age, if they were, to work in his bric-a-brac shop in the back of a newsagent's in the estate where they lived.
12-year-old Bradley and the twins, who were 11, told her that Plested had sexually abused them.
Still to this day, there are no words to describe how it eats you up from the inside out. He'd ripped my family apart, that's what he'd done.
Michael Plested was arrested and charged with offences against her boys. While he was awaiting trial, he was allowed back on the estate. Sarah Sands couldn't believe a judge had agreed to let him return to the neighbourhood.
He was given bail by the courts. I can't comment on that decision because I wasn't involved in that decision, but from a personal level, I still don't understand why the courts gave him bail, but they also gave him bail back to his home address, which was very close to where Sarah lived and her family lived, which would have then put them under, again, more stress and more pressure and more fear that there might be more repercussions.
He'd ruined my life and he tried to take away the most precious thing in my life. You know, and them babies, we all know they're not going to wake up one day and this didn't happen. I'm never going to be able to take it away from them when they're screaming in the middle of the night. I can't say, oh, it was just a dream, because it wasn't. He was a walking nightmare. It's horrendous. The guilt, the pain, the sheer shame. It's my job to protect him. I should have known. It just eats you alive.
But why are you feeling shame?
Because that's my baby. I'd give my life for my baby.
In a highly emotional state, she set off from her home and made her way to Michael Plested's flat. She was carrying a knife.
Didn't know what I was doing there. It was ridiculous. I realised I made a huge mistake. I was frightened, absolutely petrified. He had no fear. He was not remorseful in any way, shape or form. At first, he was very much, oh, your children are lying. And I was just standing there and everything froze. The whole world froze. There wasn't a world, I just froze. Once he realised I wasn't listening to the drawl that was coming out of his mouth, because we both know that my children ain't lying. The police aren't here anymore. You ain't got nobody to justify it to. We both know that you're lying. I didn't say that, but I'm sure the look on my face was literally telling him that, because at the same time, he just stopped, jumped out of his chair, went over to the window, and then came towards me. And by that time, I think I had a knife in my left hand, and I remember him trying to grab it, and then I remember leaving. Yeah.
20 minutes later, she emerged. You can see the knife. She had stabbed Michael Plested 8 times. He bled to death.
I didn't intend for it to end the way that it did. No.
You didn't intend to kill him?
No.
Hours later, she handed herself in to the police.
I saw a very frightened, vulnerable woman You could tell that she was scared. She came to the police station, she denied murder, and obviously gave an explanation of what had happened and why it had happened from her point of view.
They absolutely have the right to demand answers from me. I had taken the law into my own hands. I had done that. I've always been raised, and my boys have always been raised to take responsibility for their actions. But I also understood that this is a process. This is the process that should have happened to Michael Pleasted. This is the process.
When you learned what your mum had done and that this man was now dead because she had killed him.
That's so, like, good. I ain't gonna lie, I ain't gonna deny it. He was released on bail. What would make you think that he's not gonna go, oh, I know I'm gonna get caught, I know I'm gonna do time, let me go and get 4 or 5 more kids?
It didn't stop like any afterthoughts, you know, like we would often wake up crying and, oh, where's mum, and then the nightmares. But it was nice knowing that he was dead. If we was known that he was locked away, that I'm sure that would have been just as satisfying, but obviously it wasn't.
So were you glad he was dead?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If this guy's still walking about, and I know what he's done to me, and he's still about the government and so on, one of us could be in
So then he'll be out doing it again.
Obviously it doesn't, say the nightmares and stuff, it doesn't really slow them down away, but it does add more of a sense of security, because you don't have to walk down the street thinking, you know,
He's going to come around
he's
that corner.
yeah.
And he literally lived across the road from us. Well, I mean, I could see the man's house. I could open that window over there, and I'd see his house across the road.
There was lots of tears, certainly when she was giving evidence and certainly when the verdicts were read out.
Now, at the Old Bailey, a woman has been jailed for 3.5 years for stabbing to death an elderly neighbour who was a convicted paedophile.
Sarah Sands was convicted of manslaughter rather than murder on the grounds that she'd lost control. But some questioned whether her sentence was too lenient, and the Court of Appeal was asked to make a ruling.
The offender took with her to the scene a knife which was used in the infliction of fatal injuries, when the jury was sure that at the time she intended to cause at least serious, grievous bodily harm. She did take some steps to cover her tracks. She had changed her clothing. She appears to have attempted to avoid her fingerprints being left at the scene. The offender, having fatally stabbed the deceased, did nothing to assist him in that she did not call the emergency services. 7.5 years. That is the sentence that will be substituted for the sentence of 42 months.
There were times in the beginning of going to prison I was suicidal, absolutely suicidal. And I think I cried every day for about 6 months. Every single day, I didn't miss a day. Even in that state, I was still calling them in the morning to say good morning, calling them after school to ask how their day went, calling them in the evening to make, say goodnight before they went to bed. We wrote letters. My mum never missed a visit.
You go through like several gates, empty out all your pockets, and they just like pack all your arms, all your legs, your body, just every inch of your body. Like you couldn't bring anything in, even if you wanted to.
Open up your mouth, move your tongue up, so you're not hiding something.
They have absolutely no say in what happens to them as children. They have no say. In Holloway, you literally get 1 hour. So having them sitting there, and all I get like my little one would be here trying to play with my hair, and the boys would be like, this happened, da 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 da. Everyone wants to talk to their mummy at the same time. As soon as they left,
Did you feel, though, Sarah, did you feel remorse?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And why did you feel remorse?
I bring life into the world. It never occurred to me that I would be guilty of taking life out of the world.
Single mother, you know, trying to raise her children the best way she could. She hadn't had it easy in life. And so I'm not condoning what she did, because you can't take the law into your own hands. She should have allowed justice to sort of take its place, which was happening.
What Sarah Sands and none of her neighbours knew was that the man she had killed, the man accused of abusing her children, was a convicted paedophile who had changed his identity to try to bury his past. His original name was Robin Moult, and this is a newspaper report of his first case dating back to 1970. He had 24 convictions for sex offending. He had served jail terms for his crimes, which spanned 3 decades. Not even the local council was aware of this when it housed him in a block overlooking a primary school. Even without knowing Plested's history, Sarah Sands had tried to stop him living back on the estate after he was charged with the offences against her sons.
I did go through all the authorities.
It's the government's fault at the end of the day what happened. It's entirely their fault.
But I have to take responsibility for my
Yes, you've got to take responsibility, but you also got to take their responsibility. If they did their job properly, this wouldn't have happened.
No.
This is their fault, because at the very end of the day, if they did their jobs, we wouldn't be here talking to you.
If he was in prison after 24 convictions, then we wouldn't be sitting here today.
I've dealt with over 150 murders. This case particularly has stuck with me. I know she's now out of prison and trying to rebuild her life, and I think that's brilliant.
I've lived around here for years. Before you came, that man was living on his estate for how many years? No one had a clue. I didn't have a clue. On an estate full of kids and a school at the end of the road. We're going off for how many years?
And he was right here,
we was all living amongst it.
Yeah.
He used to watch my dog for me outside this shop.
He had children working with him every Saturday. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Never thought nothing of it. It's look after the dog. It's only old Mick.
Yeah.
Nothing of it.
Yeah.
Good to see a familiar face. A crime's a crime, people look at it like it's a bad thing, but really and truly, like, he was never a bad person. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, you're back now, that's what matters, isn't it?
I am, that is what matters, definitely. That judge maybe didn't bail him. If they'd have given him a longer sentence for his first crimes, if they'd just done what they were meant to do, we would have been good. Their lives would have been so different. Instead, they had a mum in prison for years, you know. Well, we're good. I'm good.
You're always good. You're always going to be good.
Yeah, definitely.
They had a mum that loved them. They had a mum that cared for them.
They definitely have that.
How has what's happened in the family, how has it affected them? How has it affected your relationship with them?
We're closer than ever. Closer than ever. Nothing was ever going to stop me being their mum. I don't think I'm ever not going to baby them. I don't think it matters to me what age they're going to be. You only have one mum to do it. The rest of the world, you have to be grown up and you have to go to work and you've got responsibilities. You have all that. Your mum is the only one she's always going to put that wing over you. Our relationships, of course, had cracks. You know, I had so much to catch up on and they went through so much, you know. There was cracks that we had to work on, but you couldn't break the bond. You couldn't. paedophilia is a pandemic, and you know, we've got to get change.
Sarah has now joined others who are campaigning for tighter restrictions on sex offenders who change their names. Here at Westminster, meeting the Labour MP, Sarah Champion.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I know you're Sarah as well. Thank you. For me, there is a gaping hole in child protection. It's what I found most curious but worrying when I started looking into the restrictions and the conditions that are put on sex offenders. It's up to them to tell the police that they've changed their name. Yeah. So if they don't, if they change it and they just disappear, there is literally no way until they reoffend that the police can track them down.
They could go to probation, change their name the next day, and you don't know they're missing.
Exactly.
You know, they could be anywhere in the world within 3 weeks.
The government says that offenders are legally bound to notify the authorities of any name change. But the campaigners are concerned that some are simply ignoring this and using their new identities to get through DBS checks, which are needed for certain roles and which reveal criminal convictions.
They are systematically changing their name, some in prison, so that they are able to create a new identity. But once they've changed their name, they're able to get a new driving licence in that name. They're able to get a new passport in that name, and that enables them to get a new DBS check, which will be a clean DBS check. And what we're finding is these people are then going into schools, they're going into places with young people, they're going into places with vulnerable people in positions of trust, and they're exploiting that in the most horrific ways.
We are an example of what happens when laws like that aren't imposed. They allowed him to change his name. He was within 500 feet of a school. He had children employees. They just let him on the streets.
If you are being abused or have been abused, try and talk. If you don't speak up, then whoever the man or woman that's abusing you or has abused you will move on to someone else. The sooner you say it, the sooner you could potentially save more people from being in the same pain that you're feeling.
I feel like it's better to get yourself out that situation and talk as well. Otherwise, you're just putting yourself through worse and worse.
You're eating yourself alive.
When I went in, I was absolutely very bitter towards the authorities, towards the judge that had given him bail. That was going to eat me alive. It was eating me alive. For me to help build them up and to show them it's possible, I had to do it first. The real me, the strong version of me, she's got a lot more light now. Yeah, she breathes a lot better.